All right, welcome back, you guys, to another episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast. I have Brooke Oliphant with me today. I'm very excited about this conversation because this is a topic that can be a real game changer for a lot of practices, and you don't really have to change much else in terms of marketing. So we're going to talk about what that is in a second, but I wanted to introduce Brooke real quick before we jumped into this, just to give you some reasons why to pay attention to her, because she knows what she's talking about. She's got a lot of experience. Brooke is the founder of Rise Up Coaching and one of the orthodontic industry's most outspoken voices on modernizing the new patient experience. She works with orthodontists across the country to elevate treatment coordinators, increase case acceptance, and turn consultations into confident buying decisions instead of polite maybes. Known for her bold perspective that average is crowded and excellence is a choice, Brooke blends sales psychology, hospitality strategy, and real-world business insight to help practices create unforgettable patient experiences that drive real growth. She's a speaker, author, and the creator of the Question-Focused Consultation, which is a framework helping orthodontic teams rethink how conversations lead to confident decisions. So, and I love that part too, Brooke. I mean, I just think by doing the question focus, you're allowing the patient to come to that decision on their own, which is awesome. But we won't have to get into that right now. But I just wanted to say, first off, welcome to the show. So excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Mark. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, and we talked beforehand about what we discussed today. And I thought there's no one, as I was kind of looking for someone to speak to this, I came across you and your website and your experience. And then after we got talking, I was like, oh, we got to have Brooke on here because of how much you bring to the table, how much you've seen when we're talking about conversion rates. We're talking about how to increase case acceptance, like I mentioned in the introduction, and how important that is. So why don't you, if someone hasn't thought about this topic before, what's the big deal? Why is case acceptance so important? What's the big deal around conversion rates?
Sure. Well, I think it was interesting when I was first introduced to orthodontics as a business model to see that the industry average ranges somewhere 50 to 60% case acceptance. And that's how it's been year after year, decade after decade. And so I looked at it as a business owner, an entrepreneur who had worked in other industries before coming into dentistry and orthodontics, and just questioned, who decided that this was fine?
Yeah.
Like, why do we host an hour-long complimentary consultation, offer all of this value, spend doctor time for free, and then settle for a 50 to 60% case acceptance?
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Right.
I say all the time that hope is not a business strategy. And to me, that framework is not wise business. So I know from your perspective, you're looking at lead generation. Let's get people through the door. And then we see that case acceptance is average at best. It creates frustration. It's a lot of energy and effort for less than is deserving, is ideal, or is even healthy business. So Rise Up Coaching really niches into the treatment coordinator and how to change the conversation with the patient to really guide toward decision making.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you can appreciate, like, you go in for a consultation, it's a pretty formulaic experience. Yeah. We're taking you through a nice, pleasant experience that gives you an option, or worse, doctors know more multiple options, but oftentimes even like a menu of options. And then what, the patient goes home to think about it? No, they're going home to shop around. So the consumer's treating orthodontics like a commodity more and more. They're going to 3 or more consultations before making a decision. And so really creating an experience and a conversation that differentiates and that effectively guides toward decision making is how we go from that industry average to something that really is healthy and that's strong and that can scale. And like you said in the intro, like, those people are already there.
Yeah.
So this isn't about driving more. It's about doing a better job with who you're already sitting with, really optimizing what's already walking through your door.
Yeah. Well, and there's a couple of things that I want to really underline that you just talked about, Brooke. And one of those is the fact that, yeah, you're getting more out of what you already have, essentially. And that is one of the biggest leverage points you can have in marketing, that, from my opinion, is just your ability to improve your conversion rate, your case acceptance rate. You're already getting people to come, through referrals or through other efforts to visit your site or pick up the phone and call and schedule a consult. And now, can you just convert more of them into patients? That's huge, right? That you don't have to change anything else. And you're already going to sometimes, maybe even double what you're doing right now, which is amazing, especially if you're kind of at the 50% range, which, like you mentioned, is average. If you bump up to even, like, I was just running some numbers before this, and maybe I'll share those in the notes, but, I was looking at, okay, if you did average number of new patient consults in a year, we'll say like 800, your average patient value, just for sake of math, is 7,000, we'll say. I know that's conservative for a lot of places. And your conversion rate is 50%. Your production off of those, meaning your 400, patients essentially, is 2.8 million. But if you if you improve that conversion rate just by 10%, then that same amount of patients, you're converting 10% more of those, that jumps up to 560,000 additional in production just from that. And you're not doing anything really different,
No. Agree completely. When I'm talking with practices, we look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Is this an opportunity for another 300,000 in the first 90 days of working together? Is this $1 million we're leaving on the table? Like, what is the opportunity here? It is often a bigger number than people realize.
Yeah. But we don't pay much attention to it. We just kind of accept that this is what happens in business, or this is what happens in our industry. We don't do much about it, which kind of leads me to the other point that I wanted to highlight, is just your focus on coming in, and now you're developing that team member, that treatment coordinator, into someone who can guide the patient more effectively to make a better decision, and that's why I made that comment about the question framework, is because now you're empowering the patient to make a better decision, but to leave with kind of a decision, it sounds like, you're guiding them along. So they're ultimately making the call, but they feel better about it. They're more confident in that decision, as opposed to, like you said, where you're just faced with a menu and say, well, what do you want to do?
Right. Yes. Yeah. I think we all have menus in the palm of our hand now. Yeah. So when we walk through the door, we need guidance and authority and direction, or really to simplify that decision-making process. And by asking questions and being curious, you learn from the patient's perspective how long they've wanted it, what they're fearful of, what they're excited about, what it personally means to them to do this.
Yeah.
So whether the referral is from a friend or a dentist, or they found you organically, whether they're going for multiple consults or not, at the end of the day, from the consumer perspective, they need authority. They want to feel confident and comfortable with the decision that they're making. So when I hear the narratives out of the industry that, like, people are just shopping for the lowest price, or, those kinds of things, that's from a place of fear or justification. I understand. We tell ourselves things all the time that help us sleep better at night. But when we really dig into those conversations, that 10 or 15% increase really is, it's legacy money. Yeah. It's the difference between an average business and a really strong business. It changes opportunity. It changes the impact that you have in the lives of others. And so it's not to be thought of lightly or discounted, but I think the safe side of it is that if you can accept it, then maybe it's not robbing you of peace in the same way.
Yeah. Totally. Well, and what you said about the legacy part, if you were to just kind of spread that, that we gave that example of improving conversion rate by 10%, you're over $500,000 in additional production just for that single year, and you stretch that out over 5-10 years, you're at easily $2.5 million, additional just from the same thing, right? So if you're going to invest in something, this seems like a smart way to invest. And then your other point too, just on the experience from a patient perspective, and now they're coming in, and even a team perspective, really, where from a team, you're seeing, instead of seeing 800 consults and half of them walking out the door, not to do anything with you, have anything to do with you ever again. You're seeing more of those patients. They're seeing a higher conversion. It probably feels better as a team. I'm guessing the treatment coordinator is feeling a lot better about him or herself talents are being developed. They feel like they're contributing more. I mean, it's got to be a huge win all the way around.
Yes, no, completely, because confidence sells more than the facts. So when a team member really feels empowered and valued in their position, but also that they're good, that's contagious, right?
Totally is.
So if I'm talking to treatment coordinators and they're discouraged, they're missing goals, they're questioning whether they're in the right seat. Am I actually good enough at this?
Right.
Maybe they're trained into a framework that's very scripted, it feels limiting, or their authority or autonomy inside of their position is limited. So they've got to go ask permission of others before doing things. That's not empowering.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what I'm doing with treatment coordinators is working on boosting that confidence and boosting leadership and understanding the impact that they have in the lives of the patients and in the health of the business. And when all of that comes together in a really great way, then the treatment coordinator feels unstoppable.
Yeah.
The practice is excelling, their impact is where it belongs, and with more creativity and confidence, the sky becomes the limit.
Yeah.
But orthodontics is such an interesting industry because it's like this very small bubble. And people live in that bubble for long enough. And then maybe you go to conferences and you hear what other people are doing inside of their bubbles. But I think, shifts and moves and pivots that happen inside of practices are often really tiny compared to the extent of opportunity.
Right.
So the consumer's changed. And practices are continuing to do things as they've been doing them, and there's more and more tension. So I'm meeting practices that are plateaued or going backward, and they feel like they're working harder.
Yeah.
They're still setting bigger goals because they want to grow every year. So now team members are chasing something that's even less attainable than it was.
Right.
All of that becomes very discouraging.
Yeah.
And the shifts, like you keep saying, like it's simply a shift in conversation. It's a shift in patient experience and in confidence and in leadership, and really aligning what you're doing inside of the practice with who the consumer is so that you can all win together.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Brooke, because as you're explaining it, it's like so obvious the benefits that come, but for some reason there's just not, I don't feel like there's a lot of attention on this, I mean, why isn't there why aren't more practices focused on this? I mean, I think maybe they get it, maybe they understand it, or maybe they don't. What are your thoughts on that? Why aren't more paying attention to this?
Sure. I mean, it's so multi-layered. That's kind of a tricky thing to just straight answer, right? But I think there's still a side of the industry where there's this resistance to the idea of sales.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm talking with, doctors and even treatment coordinators where they're like, well, I don't want to be salesy. And we're just here to help people. Now, if you're doing the question-focused consultation correctly, then you're truly guiding people to a place of decision. And there's so many micro yeses by the time they walk through your door that as long as you're showing up effectively on behalf of the consumer, then they get to that either yes today, yes soon, now I understand it and I need to save up for it, or no thank you. But either way, it should be a decision. So if they're leaving confused or in some place of limbo, the consultation wasn't actually effective.
Yeah.
It didn't work for the business and it also didn't work for the patient. So everyone is losing. But I think that there's still a side of maybe resistance to the idea of being too salesy.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And then sometimes I'm hearing from doctors like, well, is my TC even the right person for this position? Should I invest training into this individual? What if I invest training into this person and then they walk away? What am I left with? So when I partner with a practice, and I consider it a partnership, it's not pre-recorded things and pick and choose what works for you, but it's truly custom.
Hmm.
Um, what we create, the framework around the TC specific training is still a framework that scales. We
Yeah.
can add additional treatment coordinators to it. We can replace a treatment coordinator into it. So you're still gaining a methodology and strategies and a complete new patient journey
Hmm.
that the practice retains. But I
Yeah.
think that sometimes there's a misconception from the ownership level that if you're training an employee, you lose it if they leave.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I could see that. But what you're saying is that the framework is kind of doing a lot of the heavy lifting. I mean,
Yes,
stays in place, remains in place, so that if someone were to choose to move on, you still have that framework. You can kind of teach them how to utilize that,
yeah,
so that the same experience is delivered day in and day out.
exactly. Exactly. So it wouldn't be unlike, a practice that's been around for 20 years that
Mhm.
currently has a framework in place for the new patient experience, or like
Yeah.
the intake call sheet that they're
Mhm.
using to
Yeah.
schedule the new patient. You hire someone new, you're like, follow
I
this.
love that. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Whether that's effective or not, and I would challenge that it probably isn't. We should take a look at it.
Yeah.
But instead, we're looking at that new patient journey as a framework. I call it moments of impact.
Hmm.
If you think of it more like building blocks instead of puzzle pieces are right and wrong. And so if you hire a treatment coordinator into a model that's puzzle pieces, you're saying kind of like, personality aside, just
Yeah.
put yourself in this box.
Yeah. Interesting.
Where under Rise Up Coaching, I'm saying, let's create the framework. Here's the building blocks. Here's the moments of impact. Now
Yeah.
let's capitalize on your strengths.
Yeah.
Let's show up with authenticity. And then also let's really evaluate where are the barriers inside of maybe your own upbringing, your beliefs about the economy,
Hmm.
about money, about decision making that could potentially sabotage this.
Yeah. That's deep stuff too. I mean, I've gone through similar training because I've recognized similar roadblocks in myself, and how cool that is. I mean, that's not just something that will apply to the workplace at all, exclusively, but it'll be something that they'll continue to benefit from the rest of their life, which is
Right.
super cool.
Yeah, for sure. So I think historically the TC position was something that maybe got internally promoted, either
Yeah.
admin or clinic. You understand the software, you understand take records, take notes, present a fee, but some of the psychology, the
Hmm.
experience, the connection, style of communication, what to ask and not ask,
Yeah.
all of those things really lead to whether or not we earn trust and guide toward decision making.
Mm, powerful. Well, and I love how you described it too, Brooke, where it's a building block approach and instead of a puzzle piece. And I just that's never heard it described that way. And I just think that's such an apt description because yeah, like you said, it's either a yes or no with a piece, and
Right.
people are not like that generally. I mean, yeah, there might be some definite no's out there, but for the most part, I think there's a lot of people that can grow into a position if they're given the right tools and coaching and things
Yes.
like that. But let me ask you this then, as far as when you're coaching or you're working with a client, um, how do you approach that with a treatment coordinator? Is it just because like you said, a lot of times I get a lot of doctors that are wondering, do I have the right person in there?
Right.
Because they look at the conversion rate or their case acceptance and they're not as high as they'd like, which is almost always the case, right? It's
Yeah.
never as high as you want. But then yeah, you start to have these doubts that maybe that person isn't the right fit. So how do you
Mhm.
coach your clients through that whole process? Like deciding is this the right person or can this person be coached up?
I always approach it first that anyone is coachable.
Mm, yeah.
So when I join a team, I recognize from moment one that I was hired by the boss
Hmm.
to train a treatment coordinator, which means I'm happening to them. Maybe they were included in that decision, maybe they weren't. So step one is relatability. I've been in their chair. And I was trained under a model that even with my own background as an entrepreneur and my own natural skill sets, I was still producing average results. So I have seen, even
Yeah.
in myself, that the model that is still the most common throughout the industry very naturally leads to average.
Yeah.
Doesn't even surprise me that
Mhm.
that's
No.
so I've been there, done that, right?
Yeah.
And then the flip side is that I've had that opportunity to take a practice from 2.4 million to over 4 million
That's awesome. Yeah, that's
um,
awesome.
with the same patient flow,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Just by
incredible.
changing the conversation and increasing case acceptance. So, and now I've seen it in practice after practice. And a common question that doctors will ask is like, well, what's the right personality of a
Yeah,
TC?
yeah,
Or what
sure.
questions do you ask in an
Yeah.
interview to know if they're the right person for the
What's the
job?
secret?
There's no secret. You can be fantastic as a treatment coordinator in all different personalities, in
Hmm.
all different backgrounds, but the training that's necessary is different. If a TC is coming from a strong clinical background, they spend too much time talking clinically in the
Hmm.
consultation, and their
Yeah, that makes
conversion
sense.
rate is a reflection of that.
Yeah.
So we have to unlearn and relearn and understand what the
Mm.
shopper actually needs. And as much as, we want to say like we don't want to sell people,
Yeah.
first of all, they want this. They walk
Yeah.
through your door. Okay? You didn't
Yeah.
like you pull them off the street.
Right.
Also, they need your guidance and authority,
Mm.
but they don't necessarily know how to shop the industry. So
Yeah.
how we show up in that conversation really does matter. The other side of it is that they have to say yes before they become a patient. They
Hmm.
actually have to go from shopper to buyer
Yep.
before they get to start.
Yeah.
So we're helping people by selling. But there's a lot of oftentimes what I see in TCs, no matter the background, no matter the level of experience, is that there is a hesitancy or a timidness around the financials.
Hmm.
So there's confidence talking about the doctor, the practice, and the treatment options, and then a change in energy or rate of speech or something shifts once we're
Indicating.
talking about money.
Yeah.
And then as soon as there's any kind of resistance, the whole thing crumbles.
Yeah.
Well, I need to go home and talk about it is not the end of the conversation. That's the beginning of a new conversation.
Yeah.
So it's very fun to work with the treatment coordinators. But back to your original question, like it's first, everyone's coachable if they want to be coached.
Yeah.
So I begin by being relatable, letting them know that I've been there, done that, earn their trust. We find little ways that they can win early. And then as long as they're willing to try, they're going to get better.
Yeah.
So really the only time that
Great
I'm ever
point.
having to go back to a doctor and say, I might agree with you that
Yeah.
this isn't the right person for the chair is if they're not willing to change, if they're not willing to try something new.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's such a good point. And I totally echo what you say about what you said about, the sales kind of not mentality, but yeah, they feel like it's it's gross, it's icky, it's like this. Yeah, they don't even want to have anything to do with it. But the point is, and you made this very clear, and I love this, is just that they're coming to you. Patients are coming to you for a reason. They're looking for help. They're coming to you because they know that you have the experience, the expertise. They want someone to direct their decision. Like they can't make this decision on their own. I mean, as much as they'd probably like to, they don't have all that in-depth knowledge and all of that to come bring to the table. So they're coming to you, and as a result, I always tell people you have a moral obligation to give them the best recommendation possible. And
Right.
that's what it is. I mean, they're placing your trust in you, and when you don't tell them everything, when you don't, and some people are going to say, "Well, I don't want to sell them." You don't have to sell them. You're educating them on why they should do this. I mean, and
Yeah.
if it's not, and if it's not a good case, you could tell them that. That's totally fine. But yeah, you need to be helping them understand the realistic outcomes if they take route A versus route B versus route C. Like that's your job, and help instill confidence in that for them.
Correct. Absolutely.
So what would you say are some of the, as practices are starting to pay more attention to this, they've been frustrated with the lack of case acceptance, or it's a lower case acceptance rate. What are some of and they're trying to make do better with this, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see practices making as they try to rectify or improve their acceptance rate?
I think it's a continuation of trying to piecemeal or figure it out on their own, or they're
Yeah.
going to set a
Yeah.
new goal for the TC, or it's like you got to kind of prove yourself maybe worthy of the opportunity for
Hmm.
training. Where I talk to practices and I'm like, okay, tell me how your TC was trained. Tell
Yeah.
me what your goals are. I'm not surprised your treatment coordinator isn't meeting your goals. They
Yeah.
weren't trained to succeed,
Right.
right?
Yeah. They gave
Um,
them one sheet and now that's the,
yes, yes. So some of it is just whether it's micromanagement, it's leadership, or it's that question mark of do I have the right person? I'll hear
Mhm.
sometimes like, I'm going to give them a little bit more time and see how I feel. Maybe I'll just replace the employee before doing this. Again, the more that we're delaying, it's another month that turns into 6 months, that turns into a year
Yeah.
of under production.
Yeah.
So I mean, my own personality, I'm like, dive into the deep end and figure out how to swim once you're there. Like, let's
Yeah.
go. So, but those practices that do take that leap, that are faster to act, they're rewarded with the
Hmm.
result faster or clarity.
Right.
If you're in that limbo space of is this the right way to go or not, we don't learn the outcome or the potential or start to experience the rewards of growth by continuing to think about it or
Yeah.
plan. We have to act.
Yeah. Yeah. Inaction is the worst step you can take.
Right, right. Yes. So I see hesitancy sometimes. Maybe practices had a less than ideal experience with consultancy in the past.
Yeah.
And so
Sure.
now, you know, it
A little
feels
gun shy.
riskier
Mhm.
to take that step again. I very intentionally named Rise Up coaching as opposed to consultancy. And if you can separate them, what's typical in consultants is do our scripts, do our SOPs, watch our videos, and
Mhm.
that's the magic ticket to
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
That still leaves a lot to the employee to be creative, to be self-aware, and to implement without strategy or accountability.
Mm. Excellent points. Yeah.
Where coaching, the best athletes, the best musicians,
Hmm.
actors, like anyone that we could think of and look up to in our life, they have coaches and advisors. They have people who see their greatness ahead of them, that are holding them accountable when they don't feel like it, that are running drills, and that are being supportive. So I join doctors and their teams. I mean, very focused on the front end of the
Yeah.
business, but admin, treatment coordinators, managers, and then very hands-on with the doctors
Hmm.
to find those areas of opportunity for change and then support the implementation while empowering those in those positions to trust themselves in
Hmm.
doing
Right.
something new,
Yeah.
and to be willing to try. And then it's not always easy, right? We naturally resist change.
Always,
Um,
unfortunately.
so yeah, so just having that accountability of like, hey, let's do it. Okay, it didn't go as well as you hoped that time, but we're still going to do it again, and we're going to do it
Yeah.
again. And maybe it takes 10 times, but
Right.
now it's your new normal, and you trust yourself and you love it.
Yeah.
So the first kind of milestone with my treatment coordinators is typically when they're saying, I feel so much more confident. Like
Mm.
I feel
Yeah.
comfortable in my skin. I'm not feeling my heart start racing in these
Hmm.
situations that used to stress me out.
Yeah.
And that is often like the moment before we see a big leap on the spreadsheet.
Yeah. That's a huge change. I mean, I think about it. I mean, you could think about it in business in the office as a position, but also just in life. You see that time and time again as they start to do it more, it becomes more comfortable, they become more confident. And then all of a sudden, yeah, they make these huge, huge leaps because they realize that, oh, I can totally do this.
Yes.
I mean, it's like, I
Yes.
can absolutely do this. And I think that approach too, where you said you're really just coaching them along. And I love that visual because it implies that, hey, I'm not counting how many times you mess up or anything like that, but it's like a big laboratory experiment. We're going to figure out what works,
Yeah.
and I'll be here with you the whole time.
Exactly, exactly. I tell teams, I'm like, you could be doing things in a way that I've never seen before, I've
Yeah.
never heard of before, and it works. So we're going to leave it alone.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
not here to
Totally.
change what doesn't need to be
Yeah.
changed, but we're going to find those opportunities and we want it to be meaningful. Like, let's
Mhm.
work more efficiently, let's work smarter. But in life and in business, we need to be a lot more creative and adaptable than we
Yeah.
typically are.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the practices where the frustration over case acceptance and conversion has finally hit a wall. Maybe they've been
Mhm.
around for a while. It was easier in the past. It's not as easy as it used to be. The marketplace is noisier. The
Right.
consumer has changed. What
Mhm.
happens in marketing is different. All the
Yeah.
different avenues for
It is.
communicating.
Yeah.
How do we follow up with people? Like everything. There's so many question marks,
Right.
but they're still doing things the way they were doing them 10 years ago. And it just is not working as well as it
Right.
used to, right? The
Yeah.
opportunity is pretty endless for improvement in
Always. Yeah.
some of those scenarios. But again, it's finding where we can move the needle easily at first and creating that enthusiasm and buy-in. And then we just build a ladder,
Mhm.
right? It's like
Yep.
we're just going to keep adding to it. And as it's working and we're seeing better numbers and we're seeing more confidence and even a faster like lead to case acceptance,
Oh yeah.
right?
Shorter. You're
Yeah,
shortening that time frame. Yeah.
shortening that distance, right? If we're going to
Mhm.
send too many people into that black hole of pending and then think that we're going to somehow have a really healthy conversion rate by being better at follow
Yeah.
up, no.
Mm-mm.
No, no, no. We need to earn
Yeah.
commitment in real time.
Yeah.
And so all of the strategies that I'm working with teams on is what's the phone experience that differentiates? Because they're calling three places at the same time.
Yeah.
Like people aren't shopping around because they didn't like what they experienced at the first place. They're
Mhm.
going to two or three places before they make a decision.
Yeah.
It's different. And so what happens over the phone, what happens between the phone call and when they walk through the door, and what happens in person all ultimately shapes whether you've powerfully differentiated and you're going to win
Mhm.
or they're going somewhere else. And
Yeah.
price point is so much less a factor than what people want to assume.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I love
They
my
default
TCs
to
to
that.
death, but they're always so afraid whenever
Yeah.
their doctor raises the fee. And I'm like, let's go. Like there's less room at the top. Be the most
Yeah.
expensive. But we need to deliver
True.
an experience that aligns with it so that when
Mhm.
you get to the fee presentation, even if it is surprising, the patient's like, I get it. I can tell you're worth it.
Yeah.
Or if they're surprised by the fee and going and looking for something more affordable, what did you not do
Right.
leading up to that to like earn the trust and have them
Mhm.
understand the value?
Yeah. Yeah. What questions have been left unanswered?
Yes.
Keeping them from moving forward. And I think your approach is so powerful, and it's very strategic. It's almost scientific in a way where you're looking at not just what happens after the appointment, where you bring them in, you sit them down, you go through the treatment plan, their options, but you're looking at really how do I differentiate ourselves from the very phone call,
Mhm.
which is far beyond what most practices even consider. I mean, especially if you're a treatment coordinator, I think a lot of them would say, well, that's not my responsibility, on the phones,
Yep.
or it's not my responsibility to follow up or set that stage of expectations or anything like that. And so, but if you can take responsibility, then you realize you will have powerful influence over that whole experience, and your conversion is going to
Correct.
go up because of that. So that's
Yep.
awesome. That's so cool. I was going to ask you too, are there, do you find that as you're getting into this, are there a lot of opinions, I mean, from doctor, could be from hygienist to other staff in terms of we need to do this or we need to do that. And how do you manage all of those opinions?
Oh yeah, there's definitely lots of opinions.
There's no shortage. There's no shortage.
Yeah, we could write a book about it. Um, Oh, I see sometimes doctors giving a little more power than is appropriate back over to their team.
Okay.
So I'll hear like, I'm not sure they're gonna be willing or interested. And I'm like, okay, but it's your name on the door and
Yeah.
you're the one stressed about underproducing,
Yeah. Right.
right? So
Right.
let's find an angle to get the team on board. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there is team resistance
Mm-hmm.
to doing things differently because it's comfortable to keep doing it how it is. So I understand that, and I can acknowledge that with the team while also saying like,
Yeah.
feelings aside, let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Um, so there's that side of it, and I think sometimes internally there may be, hey, we're adopting this new tech or this new style of treatment in the clinic, and we're also bringing on a new practice management software, and so is this the right time to
To
also
adjust.
do other training
Yeah.
or revamp
Yeah.
the new patient experience? And I'll even hear like, well, we need more new patients. So we should probably focus on, fixing our marketing and our lead
Mhm.
gen before we work on training the TC or making changes inside the
Yeah.
consultation. But there's two different ways to look at that. Like
Yeah.
you could have 3 treatment coordinators and see 200 consultations a month at a
Right.
45% conversion rate, or you could have an 85% conversion rate, see half as many patients, have fewer employees. So we're either going
Yeah.
to optimize and be strategic and be smart, or you could be in the volume business.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. There's a lot to consider for
For
sure.
sure.
Yeah. But I totally agree with you. I think most would, if they had the choice, would keep it less complex. They'd see fewer patients, but they would treat more of them. I mean, they'd have a higher case acceptance. So ultimately their production is higher without doing all the work, right? I mean, you'd rather not be churning through all these people just to
Yes,
get to whatever your mark is for the year, 1,000 new patients or whatever it is.
correct.
You'd rather just focus on, being good at those that come through and being the right fit for them and helping them get through all the way. So
Hmm.
that's awesome. What would you say? I know we're kind of wrapping up. What
Sure.
just some advice for those they're starting to realize the impact that case acceptance can have on all aspects of their practice. What are one or two things that you would suggest or recommend that a practice owner might be doing right now to get started with this?
I would encourage them to think about the treatment coordinator position as if they're the true right hand to business success.
Okay.
So TCs are often, they're either micromanaged on the financial side or they're
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit more clerical. They're almost like a glorified records tech who's going to
Okay.
take some clinical notes and then present a fee. But if
Yeah.
you think about that position as a very smart business position,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to start empowering that person to communicate differently, to
Yeah.
be more creative, or maybe to train them more. I meet
Mm-hmm.
treatment coordinators who've been in the industry for 10 years and they still don't even guess treatment plans.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah.
that's the doctor's job. I was like, oh, you're selling yourself short and you're less
Yeah.
than ideal for the patient.
Yeah.
TCs really need to be setting a foundation for treatment options and the doctor's style of treatment and the opportunity for getting started here and now before they meet the doctor. Sold before they meet the doctor,
Yeah.
sold before money is discussed.
Right.
And most of the time, treatment coordinators don't even view their position through that lens. And so the whole process is just sold short.
Yeah.
So I would encourage doctors to think about like, how could they change how they're having conversations with the treatment coordinator, encouraging them to learn things from the patient, to start asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
I say, and funny, just ditch the script.
Yeah.
We have to have a framework to replace it with. But
Yeah.
the idea is stepping away from being so structured and formulaic and running
Mhm.
every consultation exactly the same, because then you're hoping that what you do works for the person that you're sitting with, as opposed to really identifying what they need.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
example, some adult is not open to braces. They're
Right.
not going to wear braces. I'm here for aligners.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Learn that. Learn it in the first 2 minutes of
Yeah.
the consult, because that consumer does not need your 5-minute presentation on your braces options and your aligner
Right.
options and the pros and cons, because they're already coming in with some education and an agenda. We
Mm-hmm.
need to learn where people are coming from and what they want or don't want, and then
Yeah.
shape the consultation around it. And then the treatment coordinator needs to effectively guide the doctor.
Right.
Hey, this is what I've heard. This is what I've learned. This is what I'm sensing. This is
Yeah.
what this person needs from you to trust you and trust us and want to do business with
Mm.
us. So if the doctor and the TC can really understand the synergy of those two roles together and how they have mutual impact in the success or failure of the consultation,
Mhm.
that's a game changer.
Yeah. Well, I could see that. Yeah. I mean, just right away, the impact that that would have. Um, I mean, it's just, it makes so much sense. It really does, but it is something that I don't see, you just don't see often enough. And I'm
Yeah.
going to go back to what you were saying earlier on the, your capacity to be adaptable, because everything does change, I mean, you could be using something that's worked and then all of a sudden it's not working as well. And
Right.
it does, a lot of it comes down to your ability and your confidence to be able to adjust to that specific patient, and otherwise you're just gonna kind of plow through that same approach, and they're not even gonna need most of it, I mean, and eventually they
Yep.
just get bored, I mean, like you said with the aligners case, you're just gonna plow through the braces options and all these things, and this person's like, oh, I don't, yeah, it's not applicable to me. Like that's just not
Right.
relevant.
Yes, yes. And I think we all have a word count. So if we reach
Yeah,
someone's word count before we get to the fee presentation, they're going home to think about it because
yeah,
they've stopped listening to you. Like they don't care anymore. And also if we don't figure out what's in the driver's seat for them making the decision, or what's all the noise that they're bringing into the consultation
yeah,
with them, then maybe we never earn their trust. Maybe they never let
sure.
their guard down enough. And so we never end up on the same page.
Yeah,
So there's that side of it. But something you said brought this to my mind. Like treatment coordinators end up being kind of discouraged in their positions, like a little bit on autopilot, not because they don't love what they're doing or the patients or the industry or their doctor,
right.
but because if you get to the same place of resistance at the end of most consults, someone else is going into pending, that that's discouraging. Right?
Uh,
You're not winning. It doesn't feel like you're
yeah,
doing your job well. But also if the TC is trained to follow a pretty formulaic process and to not deviate, then they're not developed in the skill set that is necessary to pivot in real
yeah,
time.
right, right.
Right? So someone
Mhm.
asks a question you're not prepared to answer, you freeze. You don't
Yeah,
handle it well. Now they don't trust you, or it's so in all of those scenarios, the format that typically trains and manages treatment coordinators leads them to be less empowered or less confident or comfortable,
hmm,
which ultimately drives down case acceptance.
hmm.
So I'm
Yeah,
often talking to treatment coordinators and giving suggestions for things they could say, and they're like, oh my gosh, I could say that?
yeah, yeah.
Yes, no, not only could you, you need to.
You
Like,
need
this
to,
is the point of
yeah,
this. If we're going
yeah.
to really have kind of a meeting of minds, if we're going to think of the
Mhm.
consultation as this collaborative opportunity between doctor, treatment coordinator, and patient, we all want to be on the same page.
Yeah.
So if we think about it like a triangle, all these tips need to be closed, or we didn't have a
Mhm.
successful meeting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so anyway, it's
Yeah.
fun to dig
Yeah.
into those kind of the role play side of it with the
Yeah.
treatment coordinators, and they're like, "Really? You would say that? I can say that?"
Well,
And then I get the texts and the emails of like, "I did it and it worked." I'm like,
yeah,
"Yes, it did."
it's so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where my mind went to when you were talking about that was the role play and just, yeah, testing them on different things and their
Yep.
ability to adjust. And yeah, that's awesome. That is so cool.
It becomes very fun.
Yeah. Well, and that's amazing. Well, Brooke, I want to just say thank you so much for joining us today. This has been awesome, and I could keep asking you questions because I there really is so much here, I mean, that we could unpack. So I'll try and maybe try and coax you to come back on later. But I just want to say thanks again for coming on. Is if someone is interested in learning more about you, about Rise Up Coaching, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, my website's riseuporthocoaching.com. I have different, I don't know, scorecards and assessments, like some resources available for
Yeah.
people to start seeing what is their growth opportunity by us working together, or kind of where are they at, maybe compared to how they think they land, or,
Right.
those kinds of things. So that stuff's all available online. I've got lots of videos between YouTube and social media, Instagram or Facebook, that people
Cool.
can watch. But
Yeah.
yeah, reach out, send
Awesome.
me an email, DM,
Okay.
however. And the alignment call with me is complimentary. So anyone who wants to have a conversation, let's dig into the numbers, identify if there's a
Yes.
good opportunity for us to work together.
Yes. Awesome.
Love
Well, I'll
to.
put that, yeah, I'll link that up in the show notes
Sweet.
for today's episode. And yeah, I would highly recommend that you take Brooke up on that offer. It's worth a conversation just to see, just to see what's out there and what's possible. But again, Brooke Oliphant, thank you so much for joining us today. And we've just loved having you on.
Mark, thank you.